Okay, we're going to get in trouble right off the bat because we are talking politics. Again, we do not talk politics on this show unless it is car related, and this is very much car related. But we are going to talk about Trump and Biden because, well, they're at the center of this. Trump recently issued an executive order that requires truckers with a CDL to speak English. They have to pass a English proficiency test. I'm doing well already. Probably not. Especially since I don't even know what penultimate means.
You'd get to the penultimate question and just completely flunk.
And this is arguably controversial. Executive orders in general are quite controversial. I know that they are allowed, but I think they have been way, way overdone by the past few presidents, regardless of their party. It seems crazy to me that they keep setting records for more executive orders than the last person than the last person.
Well, and they send a bunch to like undo things that the other guy did that they don't like, to do stuff they want to do. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Anyway, this one I think is good though. And it does undo something that the last guy did, which I believe the data shows is bad, right? So we've talked about the rampant issues with the trucking industry. Most notably, I mean, the joke is that it's all, Eastern European truckers that show up. They can't speak English and you just get, hello, I'm a driver. I can't do a proper accent, but anyway, I mean, that's the joke. They know like four things. Like, hello, I am driver. Can I use your bathroom? And
look, that second one's real important. I gotta be honest though, that we had a mutual friend of ours come up to me at a car show recently and say that our podcast is the reason that he doesn't want to ship a car. He's too scared. He's like, there's so many bad things.
I was trying to help a guy this week ship a car and I gave up. And this is actually showing, we've learned firsthand why the impact that this executive order is having already. But let's rewind a bit, right? So Trump's executive order would state that if they do not pass an English proficiency test when they get an inspection by a DOT, so they get pulled over, sometimes random, and they go through a safety inspection, they go through a driver inspection, they inspect their logbooks. Well, they would also have to be able to speak, read, understand English as part of this. And if they cannot, they get an out-of-service violation, which puts them out of service temporarily. The problem is there's not enough DOT people enforcing this stuff to, I think, really make a dent. We've already seen this with all the fake trucking companies out there that are running without markings or switching up their markings in between stops, that are running duplicate logbooks for 18 different companies that they're all contracting with. Yeah. Who knows whether or not their insurance is covering the truck that they're driving. I mean, it's the wild, wild west. But let's back up to 2016. Part of the reason I believe that it is the wild, wild west is a different executive order by President Biden. Now, again, we're not here to say Trump versus Biden, whatever. We're not camping in a political camp. This just happens to be related to trucking and what Biden did in an effort to solve a problem which does exist, which is not enough truck drivers out there with CDLs. There's a huge demand for truckers with CDLs. He made it extremely easy to get CDLs.
I was going to say, don't you have to have a CDL to operate a semi-truck?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And just like every other trade, there's a big demand for qualified people to do this. So the Biden administration, I believe, according to this article on Zero Hedge, they bragged that they had added more than 800,000 drivers to the network, basically 876,000 new drivers into the market. according to the stats they quote on here, it looks like it was more like about 300,000. Between 22 and 2025, the trucking industry gained about 300,000 drivers. So it looks like that stat was exaggerated. However, it was in a decline already. And all of a sudden, since 2016, they've gained 300,000 drivers. The allegations of this article is that it was all what they said non-domicile CDLs. So basically non-U.S. citizens, they don't even have enough identification to get on a flight, but they can drive a truck. And the danger in this, there's dangers twofold. One is what I'm seeing as rampant in the trucking industry, which is theft after theft after theft. You have these companies that are basically shell companies, and they're rebrokering loads to other companies that may or may not be real. They're, they're shipping drivers over from overseas. This is not anecdotes. This is, I've talked to people. I mean, we see it firsthand, but I've also talked to people who are from those countries, and they said, yes, they're advertising over in those countries, basically like, come to America. It's super easy to get a CDL, and here's all the money you can make. Oof. And they just ship them over with promises of big money. And a lot of them are criminal organizations, and they're taking the cars to the port. They're taking them to Mexico. Like, it's crazy. The other problem is that if you can't speak or read English, you cannot understand road signs. And this was brought up. This was brought up. Now, is this the cause? We don't know, but it's certainly a pretty flagrant accident. I think we've all heard about the crash in Texas, Austin, Texas, where a foreign truck driver who could barely speak English, and that's, again, that there's video that a bystander took of this truck driver right after the crash, basically showing the guy, asking him, do you know what you just did? And the guy he couldn't understand anything. And it was, I think it was foggy situations. It was a slowdown, and this trucker didn't slow down at all. I mean, he plowed through tons of cars. The accident scene is, I mean, it's devastation. It looks like a tornado went through. 5 people were killed, 11 more were injured, and the guy couldn't speak English. So this is obviously being used to say that this is the root of the problem. This wouldn't have happened if this guy had been able to read the hazard signs, know what was going on, and or have been better trained in a semi-truck. For that, I'm happy about this executive order. Now, again, enforcement's going to be tough. I was told by some truckers that next week coming up is DOT week, which is basically when they're all on duty. They are just, out there pulling everybody over. And we've been trying to get a few cars shipped this week, and it's been almost impossible.
Really?
Like, we are feeling the effects of this already.
So it's like there's just not everybody's parking at home for like a week.
I mean, we're still getting calls from all the shady truckers. Yeah. But when I'm running their stuff, it's all their companies are intertwined. It's all these different companies, but then their VIN numbers, when I do the searches on the NHTSA website, it's like, well, that VIN number was inspected for this trucking company over here, and they called us trying to get the load too. Like, are you guys just all the same company using one dispatcher? Which the answer is kind of yes.
That's wild.
It's absolutely wild. It is wild. But yeah, we're already seeing, like, I couldn't get a car from New Jersey to Ohio, which is where all the trucks run. They go from the port to the Midwest. 2 weeks I've been sitting on this car trying to get it moved.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. So, and anecdotally, I was reading some comments, and apparently in Ohio, to get a regular driver's license, you can have a translator read your driving test questions to you. So this is not just CDLs. The bar is so low to get any sort of driver's license in America, let alone a CDL, that, like, we've said this before, things have got to change. It's not just speaking English. It's knowing the rules of the road, knowing how to handle a car properly, not just like, oh, I can back into these cones and I got my license. Like the problem is bigger than just truck drivers.
Well, and I think that's kind of where I can't argue with the fact that if you can't read or understand English, all of the road signs will be impossible. And if your job is to navigate the roadways, that is a huge detriment. But I feel like this doesn't. I feel like there is more that could be done to potentially solve the problem if it was actually. I don't even know what's possible with an executive order because it seems like everything is and then nothing is at the same time. But I feel like the training, or whatever it is, the certifications have become so easy to get for driver's license, for CDLs, for everything that is the real problem. And it feels like this is a like half-hearted attempt to solve the problem that I think is very attractive to a base of people. And that's maybe why it was done.
Okay. It's attractive to me because I think it's not just a safety thing. If they put enough of these guys out of service and can, potentially permanently ban them from holding CDLs, that could potentially cut down on the crime as well, the thefts. The problem is that I don't think the consequences are enough. If I was making the executive order, I would go back and basically require everyone to get recertified. That would kill the trucking industry for a minute.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you look at the stats on this zero hedge, right? So they showed a chart from ATU, American Truckers something or other, not university, but they have large truck crash data. And the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, issued a memo around about 2016 that basically said, here's our benchmark baseline of how many truck crashes is acceptable. And since 2016, when Biden issued his order or his act in order to, make it easier for truckers to get CDLs, the fatal crashes have spiked. Every single year since then, they have been over the benchmark line. And they hadn't even matched a baseline. Well, in 2015, it was at the baseline. 2008, it was at the baseline. Every other year since then, it was below. So the curve is going up.
Well, and I should have looked this up beforehand, but was the language requirement the only thing changed in 2016 or whenever it was, or were there other things that were reduced, made easier at that time?
I don't know all of the details of like what the specifics were, but it essentially just made it easier to get your CDLs.
Because I know I read the fact sheet put out by the White House about this, and this really is just focused on the language portion, where I feel like, again, I don't want to minimize that as a huge impact if you're navigating roads with signs filled with the English language and needing to communicate with potentially emergency personnel or, even folks that you're doing business with. But I feel like something needs to be made more difficult for folks to even get these licenses in the first place because they obviously are not fit. A lot of these folks, regardless of language, just don't seem to be fit to be operating a truck. And that's my concern is like obviously the theft is rampant and everything else, but the safety of other people on the road, like I have just been seeing some similar things. I have watched trucks just behave very strangely on the highway. Correct. I was on the turnpike and it was pouring and I'm going like 65 because I'm not trying to rush. And two trucks are like racing to get past me at like 90 miles an hour. And I'm like, that's horrifically unsafe.
I am actually less concerned about the trucks going 90 miles an hour if, right? So, and this is a nod to the old school truckers that, did it with, skill, caffeine, and cocaine, right?
I don't know if I want my truckers to be coked up.
No. However, the old school guys who were on the CB radio, like back then, their version of breaking the law was, all right, well, I'm running overweight or over my hours or whatever, But those guys were born to do that. They could drive for 48 hours straight and just like not blink an eye. And their really version of breaking the law was, they get on the CB and they find out about the chicken coops, which is trucker speak for way stations, right? So they can avoid them and keep rolling. Now they're all speed limited to 62 miles an hour. They've got all the e-logs, stuff like that. But man, it's kind of like speed limits, right? Where it's like, I want all these other laws enforced for safety, but not really speed limits, because a really good focused driver who's well-trained and focused on driving is safer at 100 miles an hour than the mom texting at 60 in her Escalade. And I think that's the same case with the truckers. I'm not so much worried about the guys going 90 because they're probably in an old truck that they've owned for 30 years that isn't speed limited, and they've been hauling for 50 years. And they actually know what the frick they're doing.
But those aren't really the people I'm concerned about. It's all the folks that just don't have any sort of training or skills or ability, and it's just so easy for them to get a license now, regardless of this specific point. It's like, I feel like we're missing the forest for the trees with the topic and the wording of this order. It's like, it's absolutely a problem, but let's not focus on just one part of it.
Sure. The other issue with it in terms of enforcement is when I'm looking up these trucking companies, and I looked up a bunch of them today trying to get a vehicle moved, every single one of them had the same story. Not only were they had like 50 different companies that were related to them by VIN number, sharing on an inspection or address. I literally saw one company that had 36 different trucking companies registered at their same address. 36.
Wow.
And a whole bunch of them were, their carrier authority had been revoked. So it's like, they just start new company. Same thing with the drivers. You give them an out of service violation, I just friggin' give them a different driver's license and print a new one and put them under this company instead. They're already working for 7 different companies. We had somebody call, a dispatcher. They had to pause and look up which company they were calling on behalf of because they have so many. Like, it's such a shell game already that until you really go after that, it's a drop in the bucket. I think it's a start. But you're right. We have to make CDLs far more difficult to get. Shrewd negotiator.
Yeah.
We got one sent in to us, and we usually make fun of people for attempting to negotiate really hard. We got one via Facebook Marketplace. What did we have for sale? BMW E30 M3 for sale.
Nice.
And 75 grand, which people in the know said that's a very good price. And it was, because it sold within like 2 weeks. Well, this person literally just sent us a photo of a crack pipe.
Nice. That's good.
Just a photo. So
I don't think we can show that on the video, by the way.
No.
I'll blur it out.
Just put up
I'll pixelate it. You'll know it by the shape, but
right. Well,
man, if I had $1
based on
hey. It's a family show.
That's why we're blurring it out.
I do love the thought of just the photo superimposed on us blurred, and it's also blurred. Like, that's so good. Please do that.
Just do a fully pixeled screen. They won't even know what's up there.
Like, wow, you wouldn't believe it.
So my guys, I love them. They just gave a laugh emoji and said, clearly you don't know cars. I'm like, whoa, strong response.
Nice.
But yeah,
put him in his place.
Exactly. So the guy goes, with that mileage, it's like a 40K car at most, even with how clean it is. Very beautiful car. Not 75K though. No way. So my guy said, please send us comps of this car so we can understand the market and price ours accurately. I'm like, oh man, they trolled. This isn't even me. I'm the smart aleck here. I was like, so I guess he responded a while later. Seems like he went and looked up comps and he's like, you're right. I don't know crap. My bad, dog. Have a great night.
That's amazing.
Never seen that on Marketplace before.
The world needs more people like this guy. I love his joke. Just the photo of the crack pipe is so good. But being able to acknowledge that you messed up.
Nobody ever acknowledges that, myself included.
Oh yeah, we can't do that here. We got episodes to record.
Heck yeah. We got to finish our penultimate season episode.
Nuts for Sticks is a brand celebrating the manual transmission in all its forms. So forget those flappy paddles because we like shifting ourselves. Check out our fun and funny stick-themed shirts at nutsforsticks.com and save 10% on your order using the discount code SwitchCast. That's nutsforsticks.com and use code SwitchCast.
Thank you for joining us for SwitchCast with Doug Tabbutt and Tyler Sanders, produced by Ethan Huffnagel. SwitchCast is an automotive entertainment and opinion show, and nothing we say should be taken very seriously. We do not give tax, investment, legal, emotional, or professional advice, and the only licenses we hold are driver's licenses. The opinions expressed on this show are exclusively held by the people pontificating at that moment and do not reflect the values of our producers or sponsors. Our theme music is provided by Emily and Ivory. You can stream their full album on Spotify or SoundCloud. If you like this show, you can stream it in its entirety on your favorite audio podcast platform. Check out switchcast.live for more info.